That white stuff is wonderful. That's the fungus that's breaking down the mulch. And that's a normal thing. That's something you really want to have. So anyway, you're putting the mulch on the surface, you're watering, and then you have correctly planted your tree, your shrub, your pot of ground cover, whatever else. Next thing we've got to do is we've got to water and we've got to fertilize. Remember that the place that the water comes out of this pot, it's not evaporating from the soil, at least not very much of it's evaporating from the surface of the soil. The great majority of it is coming out through the back of the leaves through a process we call transpiration. We planted our plant right here. What's going to dry faster, the soil at the base of the plant or the soil out here? At the base of the plant, where all this water is being sucked up for transpiration, this plant's root ball is going to dry 5 times faster than the surrounding soil. But if you send your teenage son out and tell him to feel the soil and see if it needs watering, he's not going to crawl down underneath the bushes and feel the root ball. He's going to stick his finger in the ground out here and say, oh no, it's quite wet. Don't do that. Figure out how wet the root ball is and water appropriately to keep the root system adequately moist. And remember, like we just said, water doesn't kill. Lack of oxygen kills. When you water, there is no such thing as putting too much water on. Just don't do it too often. If a quart of water is good, 10 gallons of water is better. And sprinkler systems were meant to water grass. They were not meant to water trees and shrubs. And if you're relying on a sprinkler system to water newly planted plants, might work with your bedding plants, but it's going to be the death of your trees and shrubs because it's not going to get the water deeply enough into the soil. If we're in the middle of a severe drought like we are right now and you're relying on your sprinkler to water your trees and shrubs, you have dead trees and shrubs before it's all over with because it's not watering deeply enough. So water deeply and water frequently to keep things properly moistened while they get established. Root stimulator, forget it. Biggest waste of money in the world. If you want to use something as a root stimulator, use some fertilizer, use some Has-to-Grow, maybe put a little Super Thrive or something in there. But this product that they sell as root stimulator is a high phosphorus chemical fertilizer with like 0.00001% rooting hormone. In other words, it's not anything in there except the high phosphorus chemical fertilizer. You're much better off to use Has-to-Grow or to use, a similar product as a root stimulator. Now, another important thing to remember is that when you've planted this plant, you've disturbed the roots to some extent. And those roots, if you're planting especially at this time of year, although any time is windy, winter or summer, that plant's going to use up a lot of moisture. A plant with a soft bark, whether it's that oak tree out there, this Montezuma cypress, or this little Duranta, whatever, a tree will absorb, or a plant will absorb a great deal of moisture directly through the bark. And if you want to really get things off to a good start, go out there, you can do it 10 times a day and your plants would love you. Pick up the hose and just spray all over the trunk and the foliage. It's going to absorb a lot of moisture directly through that bark. You don't want to be watering the ground 10 times a day. But I know, again, the years I worked with Alton, when we got in fruit trees and things like that, bare root trees, man, we'd get out there every time we thought about it, take the hose and just spray the top of the trees. And you should see how those trees took off and grew when they were planted. So spraying the top of a tree, any plant that you transplant or anything like that will make a big difference, in getting it started. Okay, a few other random thoughts on planting plants. Fertilizing is important, and using the right fertilizer is very important. The right fertilizer means using an organic fertilizer. There are a lot of reasons for that. Number one, organic fertilizers do not burn. When you put on a chemical fertilizer, because of the nature, mainly the nitrogen that's in there, the plant goes and starts sucking up water like mad. Everybody talks about how fertilizer burns their plants if they don't water quickly. It's not the fertilizer, it's what it's done to the plant. The plant has dehydrated itself because of the nature of the fertilizer. When you put down an organic fertilizer, there is none of that rush to take up water. You can put that organic fertilizer down, it can sit there for 3 weeks without being watered. Not going to do any good until it gets watered, but it is not going to burn your plants. So your plants need nutrient, and you can put organic fertilizer on 365 days a year, and it's very important that you do so with some regularity. Yes, ma'am?
I bought some last week after we talked, and the smell is so bad. How do I get rid of the smell to, it's not for my yard, it's for customers, meaning they're gonna have to walk past it, and it's.
Well, it's a
it's
poultry litter
gross.
base. Once you water it down, the smell will largely be
Can
gone.
you use any type of charcoal or anything?
You don't need
absorb
to.
any
If you want to get rid of it even
smell?
more quickly, you take a little bit of Medina Plus and put it in there. Yes, somebody's going to take you home. I just know it.
Medina Plus?
Medina Plus will greatly reduce
The smell?
odor.
Okay.
I am not a fan of biosolids fertilizers or biosolids compost. I mean, that's sewage sludge. We used to call it sewage sludge anymore. We call it biosolids. Talk about something that'll stink in your customer's yard.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Stuart Frankie, who owns Medina, and some politician over there had had him come blow the biosolids compost on his lawn the day he was having a big rally in his yard that evening. I thought it was very funny and very appropriate, but because you know politicians are known to spread a lot of that stuff on their own. But he called Stuart in a big panic and said, "What am I going to do?" They went out and sprayed it down with Medina Plus, and the odor was gone within a few hours.
Wonderful.
The fertilizer that we like is a poultry litter base. It does have, you know, it does have a poultry litter odor to it. And some people find it offensive. I don't like it if I've got 6 bags in the back of my vehicle and I'm driving all the way to Bernie, but I just open the windows. But, you know, it's part of the perception is in the nose. When I worked with Alton, you know, and that was back in the days that everybody was using chemicals, and he would have gone through and sprayed the nursery with malathion or something like that. Just smelled horrible. And then these city people would walk out and they'd open the door and walk in and they'd say, "Oh, I just love the way a greenhouse smells." The rest of us were standing over there gagging. So it's all in perception. Do you think a barnyard smells bad or, you know, smells good? I think a barnyard smells bad and a pig lot smells horrible. But, or a barnyard smells good, pig lot smells horrible. But if you have an odor problem, Little Medina Plus will take care of it in a hurry.
Bob, what about during a drought like this and where the grass is starting to get stressed?
Uh-huh.
Should you still put organic fertilizer down?
Do you stop eating during a drought? Your plants don't either. Your plants need the nutrients as much or more so during a drought as they do any other time. Because of the nature of an organic product, it's not creating a lot of water stress. So yes, I think it's very important to water, because a lot of times, you know, if you're dehydrated and stressed, you know, heat's going to hurt you a whole lot more than if you have the proper nutrition and the proper electrolytes in your system. So yes, I fertilize even in a quote drought. Okay. If you have things that require an extra amount of iron, green sand is a natural organic iron source. And if you have, this more applies to plants that you've already planted. If you have a yellowing problem, it's either due to a lack of nitrogen, zinc, or iron, or a combination of all three. Some plants like a lot of iron, like gardenias, and when you choose your plants, I mean, it's up to you. You can choose native plants that take virtually no care, or you can choose the plants that grew in your yard in East Texas and you can work your butt off keeping them alive. But if you need a bunch of extra iron, green sand is the source. Do not use ironite, horrible stuff. Other products like the lava sand, I think that's what that is, isn't it? Lava sand's an amazing stuff, amazing material. It actually absorbs moisture out of the air. It's what we call hygroscopic. If you have areas that are drying out too quickly, put a little lava sand out. You'll be amazed at how much less water your plants will take. You have to reapply it periodically. You got to put more lava sand out about every 1,000 years. But it lasts. It's one of those things you can put in your soil one time. It also contains a certain kind of energy that we call paramagnetic energy. There's going to be a whole book on that shortly. We'll do a whole seminar on that. Just to understand. Anybody that's ever seen, I had no idea it was going to happen. I was flying to the northwest part of the country and flew right over Mount St. Helens about 10 years after the volcano blew. The regrowth in that area was 10 times faster than anybody ever believed it would be. But it was largely due to the paramagnetism in the lava that was coming out of the volcano. Anybody that's ever been to Hawaii, and especially on the Big Island where you've got active volcanoes and seen how things grow, there's a certain magic in lava, but we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that today.
Grass and everything?
You can put it anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah. And it is a fair mulch around natives. Just don't put it on too thick wind. Okay. Fertilizing important when you first put things out. Again, feed regularly. Most people do not put enough fertilizer out. You can get by. I'd say your plants need a minimum of fertilizer.